Why do we spend so much on medical care that does little to improve our health? Why do students celebrate when class is canceled, despite paying exorbitant tuition fees for the privilege of learning? Why do we donate to charities in ways that are demonstrably inefficient? In their profoundly unsettling and meticulously argued book, The Elephant in the Brain, Hidden Motives in Everyday Life, software engineer Kevin Simler and economist Robin Hanson confront the vast chasm between why we say we do things and why we actually do them. The answers they provide are not just surprising. They challenge the very foundation of how we understand ourselves and our society. The elephant in the brain. This is not the familiar elephant in the room, a social taboo that everyone sees but no one mentions. Instead, it is an introspective taboo, an unacknowledged feature of our own minds. It represents the vast, submerged continent of our selfish motives, our relentless competitive drive for status, sex, and political advantage, and the sophisticated mental machinery we have evolved to keep it hidden, most consequentially, from ourselves. This is not the murky, dream-fueled subconscious of Freudian psychology, but a strategic, functional, and evolved mechanism of self-deception. The book's central thesis is as stark as it is revolutionary. We are a species strategically designed for hypocrisy. Our brains, forged in the crucible of evolutionary competition, are built to act in our self-interest. Simultaneously, to navigate the complexities of social life, they are built to try hard not to appear selfish. The most effective way to pull off this deception, the authors argue, is for our brains to keep us, our conscious, narrating minds, in the dark. The less we know of our own ugly motives, the more convincingly we can deny them to others. Self-deception is therefore not a bug, but a feature. It is a strategic ploy our brains use to look good while behaving badly. To understand why we hide our motives, we have to go back to the evolutionary pressures that built our minds. The majestic coastal redwood trees of California. They tower hundreds of feet into the air, pushing the absolute physical limits of how high a tree can grow. Not because there's some inherent advantage to being 300 feet tall, but because they live in a dense forest of other redwoods. A redwood is locked in an evolutionary arms race with its own species. It grows tall because all the other redwoods are tall, and if it doesn't, it will wither and die in their shadows. This, the book argues, is the perfect metaphor for the evolution of the human brain. Our intelligence didn't evolve primarily to solve ecological problems, like hunting or finding shelter. It evolved in the dense competitive forest of other human minds. We got smart to outsmart each other. This is the social brain hypothesis. Our minds are the product of an ever-escalating arms race of social competition. This competition played out in three critical arenas. The first was sex. From an evolutionary perspective, reproduction is the name of the game, and the competition for high-quality mates is fierce. This led to an arms race of courtship displays. Much of what we consider uniquely human, our capacity for art, music, storytelling, and humor, evolved not just as survival tools, but as elaborate advertisements of our genetic fitness, our intelligence, and our creativity. They are our species equivalent of the peacock's tail. The second arena was social status. Status, the book explains, comes in two flavors: dominance, which is rank earned through intimidation and fear, and prestige, which is rank freely conferred out of admiration and respect. Both are largely zero-sum games. There's only so much respect to go around, and we are all constantly, if unconsciously, competing to raise our price on the social marketplace by being more skilled, more charming, or more impressive than our rivals. The third arena was politics. Humans are the ultimate political animal, not because we are individually strong, but because we form coalitions. Our ancestors' political life wasn't just a simple pecking order. It was a complex game of identifying, attracting, and retaining allies, and navigating the tumult as alliances formed, clashed, and dissolved. This required immense social and strategic intelligence. Of course, this relentless, wasteful competition is incredibly destructive. The redwoods would all be better off if they could just agree to a height cap of 100 feet and invest their energy elsewhere. Unlike trees, humans can look ahead and coordinate. This is where social norms come in. Norms are our species' superpower, our collective agreement to suppress wasteful competition for the good of the group. Our forager ancestors, for instance, were fiercely egalitarian, using norms to prevent any single individual from becoming too dominant. This was made possible by two key human innovations: language to articulate the rules, and cheap, deadly weapons, which leveled the playing field and allowed a coalition of the weak to enforce norms against even the strongest individual through the threat of collective punishment. But wherever there are rules, there is an incentive to cheat. Cheating allows us to reap the benefits of selfishness without paying the social cost. Our brains, therefore, have evolved sophisticated adaptations for both detecting cheaters and for getting away with cheating ourselves. The key to successful cheating is not necessarily total secrecy, but the management of common knowledge. A piece of information is common knowledge when everyone knows it, and everyone knows that everyone else knows it, and so on. Many forms of cheating work by preventing a transgression from becoming fully on the record. If a norm violation remains ambiguous or deniable, it becomes much harder for the community to coordinate punishment. This is why we use pretexts, why we communicate discreetly through body language and innuendo, and why we skirt the gray areas of rules. We provide just enough of a fig leaf for others to look the other way, giving them plausible deniability for not enforcing the norm. This brings us to the master strategy, the most subtle and powerful form of cheating: self-deception. The traditional old-school view of self-deception, from Freud onward, is that we lie to ourselves for psychic comfort, to protect our fragile egos from harsh truths. The book argues this makes little evolutionary sense. A general who erases the enemy army from his map to reduce his anxiety is not going to win the war. The new school view, rooted in game theory, sees self-deception as an outward-facing, manipulative strategy. The core logic is simple and powerful. We deceive ourselves the better to deceive others. Lying is cognitively difficult, and our bodies often betray us with nervous tells. The most convincing liar is the one who believes their own lie. Because our minds are not black boxes, they are translucent, and others are constantly trying to read our intentions. The most robust way to mislead others about what's in our head is to first mislead ourselves. The book illustrates this with the fascinating research on split-brain patients. These are individuals whose left and right brain hemispheres have been surgically disconnected. Because the left hemisphere typically controls language, researchers could give a command to the patient's right brain, like walk, and then ask the left brain why it was walking. The left brain, having no access to the real reason, wouldn't say, "I don't know." Instead, it would instantly invent a plausible but completely fabricated reason. "I'm going to get a Coke." This is confabulation in action. Gazzaniga, the researcher, calls this function the interpreter module. Simler and Hansen give it a more evocative name, the press secretary. Just like a politician's press secretary, this module's job is not to make decisions or to know the truth. Its job is to spin the best possible story for public consumption, to justify the administration's actions, whatever they may be. The press secretary isn't just some minor module in the corner of our minds. The part of our brain that we experience as our conscious self, the I that is listening to this right now, is the press secretary. Our conscious verbal mind is largely a post hoc rationalization machine. We think we are the president in the Oval Office, weighing evidence and making rational choices. But most of the time, we are actually the creepy guy standing next to the king, nodding along and saying, "A most judicious choice, sire," after the decision has already been made by deeper, unconscious parts of our brain. Our conscious self is a public relations agent, and its primary audience is other people. Our entire subjective experience of rational thought is, in large part, an elaborate performance crafted for social consumption. Once you have this key that our conscious minds are PR agents and our true motives are often hidden, even from ourselves, you can begin to unlock the puzzles of everyday life. Our body language, for example, is largely unconscious precisely because it is the primary channel for negotiating the taboo subjects of sex, status, and politics. Its inherent ambiguity provides the plausible deniability we need to flirt, to assert dominance, or to signal allegiance without being called out for it. Laughter is not a response to humor, it's an involuntary play signal. We laugh to broadcast the message, "We're just playing, this is not a real threat." We do this when we encounter something that skirts the edge of danger, whether it's physical danger, like being tickled, or social danger, like a joke that touches on a taboo subject. What we laugh at, therefore, reveals our true boundaries. It's an honest signal of what we do and do not take seriously, and who we consider worthy of our empathy. Even our conversations are not what they seem. The main reason we talk is not to exchange information, but to show off. In every conversation, we are advertising our intelligence, our knowledge, and our wit, the contents of our backpack, so to speak, in order to attract better mates and allies. This is why we generally prefer to speak rather than listen, and why we are obsessed with being up to date on relevant news and gossip. It's the currency we use to compete in the marketplace of social status. The logic extends to the things we buy, make, and give away. Our consumption choices are driven by signaling. We buy products not just for their utility, but for what they say about us, our wealth, our taste, our social values. An electric car signals conscientiousness. A luxury watch signals wealth. Lifestyle advertising works not by persuading you that a beer is cool, but by creating common knowledge that other people will perceive you as cool for drinking it. Art, too, is fundamentally a fitness display, analogous to the bowerbird's elaborate nest. Its value derives not from pure aesthetics, but from its difficulty, impracticality, and wastefulness. These qualities serve as honest, hard-to-fake signals of the artist's skill, creativity and surplus of time and resources. This is why we value a difficult-to-produce original painting far more than a perfect machine-made replica. Even our charity is often a form of conspicuous compassion. Our giving is frequently inefficient because its primary goal is not to help the most people, but to signal our generosity to our peers. This explains why we are more moved by the story of a single identifiable victim than by statistics about millions, why we prefer to volunteer our time when donating money would be more effective, and why we are so susceptible to peer pressure in our giving. These are all more visible, emotionally resonant ways to advertise our good character. Medicine, as we've seen, is warped by the hidden motive of conspicuous caring. The massive Rand and Oregon health insurance experiments confirmed that a huge portion of our medical spending does little to improve health, suggesting it serves this other social function of demonstrating support. Education is not primarily about learning. If it were, it would be structured very differently. Its main hidden functions are signaling and domestication. The difficult, often useless curriculum acts as a filter, allowing students to signal their intelligence, conscientiousness, and conformity to potential employers. At the same time, the structure of school, with its bells, deadlines, and hierarchies, domesticates us, preparing a compliant workforce for the unnatural environment of the modern office or a factory. And in the arenas of religion and politics, the driving motive is often tribal loyalty. Costly rituals like pilgrimages, seemingly irrational beliefs, and expressive but ineffectual acts like voting are not bugs in the system. They are features. They function as hard-to-fake signals of commitment to one's in-group. In these domains, we are rarely pragmatic do-rights, seeking truth or the best outcome. We are loyal apparatchiks, performing for our team. The inefficiency we see everywhere is not a sign of failure. It is the system working exactly as intended. The key to honest signaling is waste. Art is valuable because it is impractical. Charity is impressive when it is inefficient in a visible way. Education works as a signal because much of the curriculum is useless for future jobs. Medicine signals care when it is excessive. In each case, the wastefulness of the act is what guarantees its honesty. It's a real-world demonstration of the handicap principle, the grand unifying theory for much of our social lives. The waste is what makes the signal credible and therefore valuable. So, what are we to do with this unsettling new picture of ourselves? The book's conclusion is not a call to cynicism or despair, but to a more clear-eyed and effective way of living. The first step is self-improvement through enhanced self-awareness. The goal is not to somehow vanquish the elephant in our brain. We can no more transcend our biology than we can the laws of physics. The goal is to acknowledge it. By being more honest with ourselves about our own selfish motives, we can make more conscious, deliberate choices. We can better understand why we feel pangs of envy at a friend's success, or why we're so quick to rationalize our own questionable behavior. This awareness gives us a choice. We can learn to work with our nature, not against it, by finding ways to align our selfish incentives with more pro-social outcomes. We can design our lives so that the wind of human nature is at our backs, rather than constantly struggling against it. The same logic applies to institutional reform. So many well-intentioned reforms fail because they address only the professed goals of an institution while ignoring its hidden functions. An education reform that tries to eliminate standardized testing without providing an alternative way for employers to vet candidates is doomed to fail. A healthcare reform that focuses only on clinical effectiveness while ignoring our deep-seated need for conspicuous caring will meet with fierce, seemingly irrational resistance. To build better institutions, we must be savvy designers who account for both the noble goals we talk about and the selfish goals we quietly pursue. We must find ways to achieve our deeper goals more efficiently, while still giving the appearance of serving our surface goals. In the end, this portrait of human nature, for all its harsh light, is not an indictment. It reveals us as creatures far more complex, contradictory, and interesting than the rational actors of economic textbooks. We are self-deceived animals who have built elaborate institutional palaces to accommodate our hidden motives. To acknowledge the elephant in the brain is to see ourselves more clearly. It's a call to be a little more humble about our own righteousness, a little more forgiving of others' foibles, and a lot more curious about the hidden currents that shape our lives. The real journey begins when you start to look for the elephant in your own brain and in the world all around you.